The scent of aged paper and blooming plum blossoms mingled in Akiko's small writing room, a humble space overlooking a moss-dappled garden in Meiji-era Kyoto. In the hush of dawn, Akiko traced her finger along the golden veins of a mended teacup. "Every break is a story," her grandfather would say. She wondered if her own story, battered by rejection, could ever be mended with such grace. Her latest manuscript, a historical romance daring to question the rigid societal expectations placed upon women, lay open on her low writing desk. It was adorned not with elegant calligraphy, but with the angry red marks of a publisher's refusal. "Unsuitable for a female hand," one scrawl declared. "Lacks the gentle spirit expected of women's prose." Another read, "Topics too grand, too complex for the delicate sensibilities of the readership." Each word was a shard, slicing at her nascent dreams. In the burgeoning Meiji era, a period of dramatic modernization and Western influence, the ideal of a good wife and wise mother was firmly entrenched, despite the new opportunities for education for girls. Women writers, though not entirely absent, often faced an uphill battle against patriarchal norms that sought to confine their voices to domestic spheres. Akiko sighed, the sound barely disturbing the tranquil morning. At 22, she was past the age when most of her peers were already settled into marriage, raising families and managing households. Her heart, however, yearned for a different kind of life, a life where her thoughts, her observations, and her imagination could find form on paper and touch the hearts of others. It was a silent rebellion, a quiet pursuit against the unspoken decree that a woman's greatest achievement lay within the walls of her home. Her grandfather, Kenji-san, was a man whose hands, though gnarled with age, moved with the precision and grace of a dancer. He was a kintsugi master, a craftsman who transformed broken pottery into objects of greater beauty and value by mending them with lacquer dusted with powdered gold. His workshop, adjacent to their modest home, always smelled of resin, crushed pigments, and the faint, earthy scent of ancient clay. Akiko remembered a particular afternoon from her childhood, a day of clumsy youth when she had accidentally shattered her grandmother's favourite celadon bowl. Tears had streamed down her face, fearing her grandfather's anger, but Kenji-san had simply knelt, gathered the shattered pieces, and with a gentle smile said, "Do not weep, little one. This bowl is not ruined. It is merely waiting to tell a new, more profound story." Over many weeks, Akiko had watched, mesmerized, as he patiently reassembled the fragments, filling each crack with shimmering gold. The resulting bowl was breathtaking, its golden veins like rivers of light across the pale green glaze, a testament to resilience and the beauty of imperfection. That lesson, absorbed deep into her young spirit, now echoed in her mind. Could her rejected manuscript, her fractured spirit, be similarly mended? She rose and walked to her grandfather's workshop. He was meticulously working on a delicate tea bowl, his magnifying glass perched on his nose. The faint hum of Kyoto awakening, the distant clatter of a rickshaw, the soft cries of street vendors, the ringing of a temple bell, barely penetrated the serene concentration of the workshop. "Grandfather," Akiko began, her voice a whisper. He looked up. His eyes, though aged, held a keen, knowing light. "Akiko, your spirit seems cracked this morning. Did the pigeon not deliver good tidings?" He referred to the postal service, a relatively new modern convenience that connected Kyoto to the wider world. Akiko placed the rejected manuscript on his workbench. "They say my words are too strong, my ideas too unwomanly." Kenji-san picked up the manuscript. His fingers, accustomed to feeling the subtle textures of ceramic, traced the harsh red lines. He did not immediately offer words of comfort. Instead, he picked up a shard of broken pottery from a tray of discarded pieces. "This piece," he said, holding it up, "is useless on its own. It is sharp, incomplete, But does its brokenness diminish the quality of the original clay? Does it negate the skill of the potter who first shaped it? Akiko shook her head. No, grandfather. And when we mend it, he continued, placing the shard alongside another, do we hide the cracks? Do we pretend the break never happened? No, you highlight them with gold? Precisely. Kintsugi is not about erasing history, it is about embracing it. It is about understanding that true beauty, true strength, comes not from an absence of flaws, but from the courageous act of mending them, of allowing the imperfections to tell a story, of resilience. He paused, looking at her intently. Your manuscript, Akiko, is like this shard. It is not ruined, it is merely awaiting its golden seams. His words were a balm, yet the path forward remained unclear. How did one apply the philosophy of Kintsugi to words, to a nascent novelist's heart? But how, grandfather, she asked, her voice laced with despair. How do I mend something so intangible? Kenji-san smiled gently. Patience, observation, and respect for the material. Just as I must understand the unique qualities of each piece of pottery, you must understand the essence of your story. And just as I must patiently apply layer after layer of lacquer, allowing each to dry, so too must you patiently revise, refine, and allow your story to breathe and mature. The Kintsugi process itself is meticulous and can take months to complete, requiring dedication and patience. He picked up the rejected manuscript again. The cracks are here, Akiko. These criticisms, however harsh, are not meant to destroy, but to reveal weaknesses that, when acknowledged and repaired, can make your work stronger, more profound. Inspired by his calm wisdom, Akiko returned to her room. She didn't immediately pick up her brush. Instead, she spent days in contemplation, observing her grandfather at work. She watched his painstaking process, cleaning the fragments, preparing the natural lacquer, meticulously fitting pieces together, applying layers, waiting for them to cure, then dusting the final seams with gold powder. Each step was deliberate, respectful, and steeped in patience. She began to see her own writing in a new light. Each rejection was not an end, but a revelation of a crack. The criticism about her voice being unsuitable for a female hand now seemed less like an indictment and more like a challenge to strengthen that very hand, to make it undeniably hers. The unwomanly topics she chose were not flaws, but distinct qualities. Like the unique pattern of a broken teacup, Akiko started by dissecting her novel. She didn't just rewrite, she repaired. Where a sentence felt weak, she strengthened its structure, as one would reinforce a fragile edge of pottery. Where a character's motivation was unclear, she delved deeper, adding layers of nuance, much like applying fresh coats of lacquer. The criticisms that stung the most, those about her unwomanly perspective, she now chose to highlight. Instead of softening her female protagonist's ambition, she amplified it. She wove in subtle details about the constraints placed on women in Meiji society, making her characters' yearning for independence even more poignant and relatable to others who might share similar, unspoken dreams. The ideal of a good wife and wise mother limited women to domestic roles, and Akiko's defiance through literature was a quiet revolution. Her grandfather continued to be her silent guide. One evening, she showed him a passage she had heavily revised, a scene where her protagonist faced a public rebuke. She had initially softened the character's reaction, fearing it would appear too aggressive. Now, she had written her to stand her ground, her words sharp but dignified. Kenji-san read it slowly, then looked up, a rare smile gracing his lips. Ah, the gold shines brightly here, Akiko. This break, once a weakness, now gleams with a strength that was always beneath the surface. The process was arduous. Days blurred into weeks, then months. There were moments of despair when the old doubts crept back, whispering that her efforts were futile, that a woman's voice was destined to remain unheard in the grand halls of literature. She read about pioneers like Higuchi Ichio, one of the few recognized women writers of the Meiji period, and found a quiet strength in their struggles. But each time, the image of Kenji-san's golden pottery, resilient and more beautiful for its mended history, pulled her back. She learned that kintsugi was not about instant fixes, but about enduring patience. She spent her afternoons walking through the bustling streets of Kyoto, observing the vibrant tapestry of life. The traditional machiya houses, the hurried rickshaw pullers, the serene temples, and the growing presence of Western influences in dress and commerce. She saw the quiet strength in the women working in the tea houses, the resilience in the merchants haggling in the markets, the hidden stories in every passing face. She incorporated these observations into her story, grounding her narrative in the rich reality of her world. She realized that her unique perspective as a woman, as someone who saw the subtle cracks and resilience in daily life, was not a weakness but a profound wellspring of truth. When the revised manuscript was finally complete, it was almost an entirely new novel. It was longer, deeper, its characters more complex, its themes more resonant. The original story was still there, but the places where it had been broken were now infused with a golden strength. It wasn't just a story about a woman, but a story of humanity, of perseverance, of finding beauty in the struggle. This time, Akiko did not send it to the same publishing house. She had heard whispers of a new, smaller publisher in Tokyo, helmed by a forward-thinking editor named Kaito, who was rumoured to be open to unconventional voices. It was a long shot, but Akiko had learned that sometimes the greatest treasures are found not in the obvious places, but in the overlooked cracks. Weeks turned into a restless eternity. Akiko continued to write, new ideas stirring within her, but a part of her remained suspended, waiting. One afternoon, a crisp, official-looking letter arrived, not by the local pigeon post, but by a special messenger. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The letter was from the publisher. Kaito-san, the editor, had not simply accepted her manuscript, he had written a personal note. "Dear Akiko-san," it read, in surprisingly elegant script. "Your novel, The Gilded Thread, is unlike anything I have read. Your voice, while powerful and perhaps, as some might say, unconventional for a woman, is precisely what gives this story its profound resonance. The way your protagonist navigates her world, embracing her challenges and finding strength in her vulnerability, reminds me of the ancient art of Kintsugi, where flaws are not hidden but illuminated, making the object even more precious. Your story does not merely entertain, it heals." Akiko gasped, tears blurring the words. Kaito-san, a stranger, had seen the gold she had painstakingly woven into her narrative. He had understood. "Grandfather!" she cried, rushing into the workshop, the letter clutched in her hand. Kenji-san, polishing a newly mended vase, looked up, his eyes twinkling. A different pigeon this time. Akiko could only nod. Handing him the letter, he read it slowly, his gaze lingering on Kaito-san's discerning words. When he finished, he gently folded the letter and placed it beside a freshly gilded tea bowl. "The thread was always there, little plum," he said, his voice soft with pride. "You merely had to find the courage to mend the cracks and let its gold shine through." The Gilded Thread was published 6 months later. Its release was modest at first, overshadowed by more conventional works, but slowly, steadily, word began to spread. Readers, particularly women, found themselves drawn to Akiko's protagonist, a character who reflected their own unspoken desires for agency and self-expression in a rapidly changing world. Her narrative, infused with the struggles and triumphs of everyday life in Kyoto and the enduring spirit of perseverance, resonated deeply. Critics, initially dismissive, began to take notice. Some praised her bold storytelling, her intricate character development. Others still murmured about its unfeminine qualities, but these criticisms now seemed to fade into the background, like distant echoes. The novel's unique strength, born from its revisions and the author's resilient spirit, was undeniable. Just as a Kintsugi piece is better than new because of its mended history, Akiko's novel was richer, more profound, precisely because of the rejections and the soul-searching that had gone into its creation. Akiko's success was not a sudden explosion but a gradual blossoming. Like a patient seed pushing through hard earth, her stories, once dismissed as broken, were now cherished. Their golden seams visible to all who sought to find beauty in imperfection. She continued to write, each new manuscript carrying the indelible mark of her journey. She learned to embrace every challenge, every setback, as an opportunity for growth, a chance to add another layer of gold to the tapestry of her life and her art. Years passed, Akiko became the Kintsugi Novelist, a quiet legend in the literary circles of Meiji and then Taisho, Japan. Her works were translated, her stories crossing oceans and cultures. She never forgot the lessons of the mended teacup or the wisdom of her grandfather, who lived to see her celebrated. One crisp autumn morning, Akiko, now a woman of quiet strength and profound insight, sat in her writing room. The plum blossoms were long gone, replaced by the fiery hues of maple leaves outside her window. On her desk sat a new manuscript, fresh and unbound, and beside it, the very teacup her grandfather had mended all those years ago. Its golden veins shimmered in the morning light, a silent testament to the enduring beauty of things made whole, not despite their breaks, but because of them. Each scar, each flaw was a story, a gilded thread woven into the fabric of existence, proving that healing through perseverance did not merely restore, but transformed, making one stronger, richer, and infinitely more beautiful. Her journey, like the ancient art of Kintsugi, had taught her that the most profound masterpieces are not those that are flawless, but those that have been broken, lovingly mended, and made radiant with the enduring spirit of gold.